Purdue represents hard work, achievement, success where few think success can be had.
2000 team is special. You look at the accomplishments of that season, the Big Ten championship, the Rose Bowl berth. The fact that our school hadn't been there in 34 years. I just know how many people have been waiting for that opportunity again.
It's a big deal in the Midwest and in Big Ten country to get to Pasadena on New Year's Day. As a Purdue fan, that was a pipe dream. It was almost as realistic as winning the lottery.
When Bob Greasy and the Boilermakers hit that lottery and reached the 1967 Rose Bowl, little did anyone know at the time how long and winding the road would be before Purdue returned to Pasadena. By the end of the 1996 season, a full 30 years later, Roses and Southern California appeared hopelessly out of reach.
This is the 12th consecutive year that Purdue will not have a winning season.
Not only was it 12 consecutive losing seasons, they weren't even close in most of those years of having a winning season or playing 500 ball.
It was not fun football to watch. It was bad and boring, that lethal combination, I think.
The heat is on the head coach here at Purdue. Jim Coletto has got to produce a winning organization here.
After the 6-year Jim Coletto era that produced no bowl game at all, I think the athletic department and the football team are really sort of teetering on the edge here.
In November of 1996, then Purdue head coach Jim Coletto resigned in the midst of a 3-8 season. Athletic director Morgan Burke began to forge the Boilers' new direction.
I convened a group in my basement, and I had Coach Katie, who's the legendary basketball coach here, and Jim Coletto was there, and we just began to talk about what is it we think we need. I threw out the question, you know, who might fit that bill, and one of the names that popped out was Joe Tiller.
A Purdue assistant in the 1980s, Joe Tiller had found success as the head coach at Wyoming, riding a spread offense that propelled the Cowboys to a 10-win season and the 1996 WAC title game. Tiller jumped at the chance to build a winner in West Lafayette.
At that time, the Illinois job was open and the Minnesota job was open. And I had gotten calls from both those universities. But the Purdue thing was like, well, Joe, we want you to become our head coach, and we want you now.
I said, if you'll come in and roll up your sleeves and work with me, I'll roll up my sleeves. And I said, we're going to have a level of trust that we can build the resource base that we need to be competitive.
We're here to win a championship. We've won them in the past, and we will win them again in the future.
I didn't buy into this idea that Purdue hasn't had a winning season in 12 years, and it might be another 12 before they have a winning season. I didn't subscribe to that.
Tiller's first order of business in 1997, introducing the Purdue players to his brand of football.
Knew nothing about Joe Tiller other than that he came from Wyoming, that the team was the Cowboys, and, you know, he had a good-looking mustache.
Joe Tiller. I laugh because Joe is always trying to find a way to get in your head.
He's really into the psyche of players and the collective team. Understands when to push, when to pull off, and it's not always the same.
Very early on, we began to trust him. We had a do-right rule. Say do what you're supposed to do.
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 Do it when you're supposed to do it.
The way it's supposed to be done. How you're supposed to do it.
The way it's supposed to be done. When you're supposed to do it.
And do it that way every time.
Do what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, the way it's supposed to be done, and do it that way every time. I read that as a quote from Bobby Knight. It stuck with me. I'd never forgotten it.
Years later, Purdue players still haven't forgotten the indoctrination of that mindset at Coach Tiller's legendary early morning workouts.
In 6 a.m.s, if they say step over the bags, make sure you step over the bags, keep your shoulders straight. He means step over the bags, keep your shoulders straight, or we're going to repeat it all over again.
I think we lost 15 to 20 scholarship athletes just because of how difficult and challenging those off-season workouts were.
Those guys became convinced that they were doing something that their opponents weren't doing. And they were getting tougher as a result of that.
The Joe Tiller era at Purdue began on September 6, 1997 in his hometown of Toledo against a Rockets team that had lost by 34 to Indiana the previous season.
I knew they had a pretty good football team, but it was the MAC, you know. And Big Ten teams are not supposed to lose to MAC teams. At least that's what our players believed.
Your final score, your Rockets 36, Purdue 22.
This is your new football coach. This is going to be the guy who saves your football program, rescues your athletic department. You can't beat Toledo.
What we were used to with Coach Coletto was a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, a lot of cussing, and a lot of saying, hey, we can't do that.
Coach Tiller comes in and he's calm and kind of makes a little sarcastic joke. Well, hey, looks like we definitely need to practice some more.
I thought, well, we've got 10 more games to play. There's no sense in ripping a strip off of them today.